Hey y'all out there, my name is Leonidas T. Wheeler. I'm from Lecter, Missouri, the town right along the Mississippi River. Now I bet you're saying to yourself, that ain't very far away, and what care should you give to me talking about who I am and where I'm from? Well, I suppose I'd think the same thing, so I ain't going to harbor no animosity towards you. But besides that, before I get on with what I'm going to get on with, I want to tell you what is important about who I am besides what I'm called and where I'm from. It's when I'm from that ought to raise some of them eyelids of yours that I see slowly starting to close even as I haven't finished my introduction. I'm from the year 1890. Hey, come on now, don't leave. I'm telling the truth. Just look at my hat. Would I wear this hat if I were from this time? Of course not, I'd look ridiculous. Now you know it makes sense. So just sit back down and relax so I can get to telling you about why I come. First of all, I'm sure you're wondering, how did I get here and why am I talking like a Yankee? Well, the answer to both is simple enough. It was a witch. That's right, a witch. Before I knowed she was a witch, I knowed her as the old lady who owned the bookstore in town. Well, I went there one day fixing to find me a book on taxidermy. Well, on the shelf was a book by a Missouri native the name of Mark Twain. The book was called The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Well, I took a look at that book and thought out loud it looked mighty dumb, and whoever wrote it must be even dumber. Well, it was at that time I heard a whoosh sound like something heavy getting swung about the air, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I sort of looked around, and eventually I sees the old lady from the store messing around with a whole bunch of jars and reading out of some big book. So I don't have all day to keep giving you a minute-by-minute account of the experience, so let me just get to the point. Turns out the lady was a witch, and real into literature. She said she was going to use all the powers she could muster to make me understand something about Twain and his novel, as well as punish me for being such an ignorant, uncultured old fool. So she done it, and here I am in the future. I guess having to talk like a Yankee was part of the old lady's punishment, and it's a good one. I feel like an idiot talking like this. At first I didn't understand the witch's plan at all, but after seeing your technology, I see why she sent me to this time. By Jesus, it's easy to learn stuff in your time period. All the information on just about any subject's available on these computer things. I filled up on all the stuff I could find about old Twain and his masterpiece. Now that I think I can wrap my head around it, I want to tell you about Twain and what I liked about his book. I'm pretty sure if I do this right, I'll be able to go back to my own time. No offense to all you, but the traffic is unacceptable in this century, and I don't want to stay no longer than I have to. Hopefully it'll get me back to speaking in a respectable southern dialect. Now this is going to be official, so from here on out, I'm going to be talking with less slang and a little bit more of a formality. Let's go, shall we? Mark Twain was born Samuel Langhorne Clemens on November 30th, 1835, in Florida, Missouri. He later moved with his family to Hannibal, Missouri, where he was raised. Clemens would later take up the pen name Mark Twain, meaning a depth of 2 fathoms in riverboat jargon. First working for several newspapers and then becoming a riverboat captain, Twain went on to become a traveling journalist, humorist, writer, and lecturer. He fathered 3 daughters with his wife Olivia Langdon. After several successful published works, he used his upbringing along the Mississippi River as a reference for the adventures he describes in Life in the Mississippi, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. The last would come to be known as his masterpiece. Twain traveled around the world and amazed his audiences with his trademark wit and humor. He amassed great fame as a lecturer and a public figure. He is commonly quoted today, as his writings contain a wealth of pithy and still relevant musings. Alright, well now that we're through with that, let's move on to talking about the book. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn tells the story of Huckleberry Finn, a young boy growing up in a small town in Missouri, right along the Mississippi. His father's abusive and an alcoholic. Huckleberry decides to escape, so he takes off down the river. Now, he runs into a runaway slave named Jim, who Huckleberry already knows. And Jim informs him that he's run away because his master was going to sell him to even farther south, which is where things are even harsher for slaves. And Huckleberry decides to go ahead and escape with Jim, and they take off down the Mississippi River together. Now, what's important about this is Huckleberry does struggle at one point with whether or not he should turn Jim in. He feels that he's the rightful property of his owner, and therefore has a sort of a moral struggle with whether or not he should turn Jim in. Now, what's great about this is that in your time period, it may seem completely obvious that it would be immoral to give Jim back, and that slavery itself is immoral. However, in reading the book, you'll notice that Huckleberry Finn is an incredibly moral character. He cares about others. He's a good boy, and yet he struggles with this issue, and that really puts you, lets you understand as a person who's, even if you're not from the time period, understand just how ingrained slavery was, how okay it was in the mindset of those who were living during the time and in the place. Um, it really makes it real for the reader. So, off the bat, what I really liked about this book is that it really accurately captures the culture and climate of my time period and place. Now, what I mean by that is its treatment of facts. Facts and truth, they're all sort of loose weave where I come from. You don't get much schooling. You learn from your parents. You learn from folks around. They tell stories. You learn superstitions. And most of what you learn, you got a bunch of stories you learn. Most of them are probably stretched. Lots of them are probably completely false. And he sort of puts you, the reader, in this mindset and in this sort of climate where you're not sure what's true and what's false. He does this by starting the book off telling you that most of what you know about Huckleberry Finn, the character, you would have learned in his other book, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, which was somewhat stretched. He admits in this introduction that that book had some stretched truths in it. Now, he's already, basically, this puts you in a position where you're now unsure what you know about Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn is true and which parts are false, because all you know about them is from that book. And it also insinuates that this book's going to be in the same vein. So now you're in a position where you're not sure what to believe and what not, and that's pretty much the position you're in living where I come from. Now, one thing I've learned about Twain from studying about him is that he's a very skeptical guy. He appreciates inquiry. He appreciates being sharp. He definitely doesn't like gullibility. I feel that this shows in this book, and I'm going to give you two different examples. But basically in the book, Huckleberry lies to a lot of folks. A lot of different people tell a lot of different stories and try to con other folks, and most people are always buying it. The only time anybody ever gets closer to the truth is when they do a little bit of questioning. And I feel like this is Twain trying to point out that this is a sort of a trait that he admires. One time is when Huckleberry goes to a woman's house to try and dig up information about himself, if anybody's looking for him and Jim. He goes dressed as a girl. Now the woman, sharp, able to figure out he's not a girl. She calls him on that. She asks him to tell her the truth. He tells her another lie about being from the country living on a farm. She still does not take this for granted and asks him some more questions. Now, he's able to answer the questions, and she ends up believing him. But the point is, Twain, I don't think, feels you should take anything just on faith. And I think it shows in the way that this woman gets even closer to the truth and is able to uncover a little bit more just from being sharp and asking some questions. Now, another time that this happens is later on in the book. Huckleberry and Jim run into two con men, and these two con men decide they're going to try to con an entire town because a man in the town who is rich has died. And this man's brother, who nobody in the town has ever met, has not yet arrived to claim his inheritance, which is quite large. So the two men, con men, decide to con the entire town into believing that they are the people they're waiting for, the brother of the man and his companion. So they go through the town, and the whole town buys it. They offer some very, very weak evidence, and it doesn't take much, and everybody all of a sudden believes them. Now, there's only one man in the entire town who doesn't, and that's the doctor, and he insists. He sees right through them. He sees that their accents, which are supposed to be British, are very fake accents and bad impersonations, and he keeps pushing. He doesn't let it go. He keeps pushing, and then this is what ends up uncovering them and ends up making the whole town find out they're frauds, is his insistence on not giving up and not being gullible and being skeptical. Now, I believe that that's a major theme in this book, and that Twain definitely shows that he favors skeptical inquiry over gullibility, and sees most people as being gullible, and it being a trait of intelligence to be skeptical and ask questions. Now, that kind of wraps it up for what I want to talk to you about. Should be getting back to my time now. I don't seem to see anything happening. I hope it all worked out. Let me see. Maybe I'm supposed to do something, should I say? What about my hat? Thank you.